The RTX 3080 came out around 3 years ago at this point, around 2020, or I guess late 2020. But how's it doing today? Well, for today, we're going to go back and test out the RTX 3080 in games that are released in 2023. Now for the resolutions and the game settings, I'm going to be going for the max that the card can handle, 4K or 1440p for most of them. And if it has RT, I will enable RT as well. And I'll be targeting 60 FPS at least for all the titles. Alright, first game will be Forza Motorsport. I'm be playing the game at 1440p at the ultra settings with RT enabled as well. And here we go with that. There we go. Alright guys, jumping into our first race, let's count the frames. And sadly, for our first game, we are stuck playing at 1440p. This game can be played at 4K obviously, but you will sacrifice a bunch of the graphics to play at a higher resolution. So for me, I'd rather play at the max settings and have RT enabled than play at 4K and play at a mix of medium and high, for example. So yeah, 70 FPS right now, up to the 80s. And we are playing on a rainy day as well. I went off track, that's fantastic. Which normally is a bit more intensive than a dry day. We have all the cars on screen. This game has an FPS cap of 60 if you go online. So again, 60 FPS is the target. And the 3080 can easily hit it at the max settings with DLSS enabled, to be fair. But the game looks fantastic, still looks very sharp and very nice looking. So it's not really an issue there at all. And the game has no stutters, no lag spikes. It's playing quite nicely at above 60 FPS. It's a really fun game, but I wish it had more content and it was less spiky on PC. Because yeah, it's not very stable, but if it works, it does work quite well. That is the first lap done, guys. We've had one stutter I think so far, but other than that, it's been very smooth. And already, as you guys can see, our VRAM is fully maxed out at 10 gigs, which is insane, but it doesn't affect the performance of the game at all. I think at 4K, it plays at around 30 FPS, and over time, it does fall down into the low 20s. But again, that's running at the max settings with RT enabled as well. So it's very intensive, and you'll be paying for it with your performance. So yeah, that's the first game done. It plays fine at 60 FPS and above at the max settings with the RTX 3080 10 gig. Alright, time for our second game. I'll see you guys there. And now for our second game, we're playing AC Mirage. I think this game, as well as Armored Core, are one of the best optimized games of this year. And for this card, I'm playing at 4K at the max settings with performance DLSS. So again, here we are in the settings, 4K and at the max settings with DLSS enabled as well. Look how nice this game looks. It looks super nice. Love the graphics. And performance is top notch. For our VRAM, we're sitting at 8.5 gigs. Again, this card has 10. So we're fine there. And using DLSS, looks fantastic. It's very sharp at 4K. It looks as good as native 4K does. So yeah, in free roam, we're sitting in the 90s, up to the 110s. But let's go back to the intro of the game. There's a very intensive scene where the FPS falls quite heavily. So falling down here, the FPS falls as low as the mid to low 70s. That is kind of crazy. A massive FPS dip pretty much. But still above 60 FPS. So the game is still playable, it's very smooth, and a good time all around. And if you want to get more frames, then obviously lower the settings of the game to either medium or high, and you'll have far better performance, especially in this segment. Get parried, boom! The fighting is satisfying. They've done a good job with this game. Okay, time for our third game, guys. We'll see you guys there. Let's go. And the third game on the list will be Resident Evil 4 Remake. And we're playing the game at 4K at pretty much the max settings. RT enabled as well, and balanced FSR 2. Now for our textures, I've dropped it down to 4 gigs instead of 6. Again, we have around 10 gigs of VRAM, and with RT enabled, it will go above that. So I do want to keep it down for our textures at least. Okay, let's kill this first guy real quick. Get shanked. This time I'm playing on keyboard and mouse, so the aiming will be much easier. You're done. Let's go past all these guys. And already, guys, we are sitting in the mid-90s, which is fantastic. It's very playable, obviously. And the aiming feels very nice. And coming up here, the FPS falls down into the mid to high 80s and now the low 90s. For our VRAM, we're sitting at 9.4 gigs. We are getting close to the limit. But again, we have RT enabled and 4 gigs for our textures. Alright, down here in the intro, guys, we are sitting in the low 80s / the mid 80s. Again, there's no stutters, there's no lag spikes, the game plays fine, and is very smooth all around. Let's walk up to the fire here. Might fall down even more. And it does. It goes down to the mid 70s. So yeah, still above 60 FPS. And a really good time all around. Time for our 4th game, guys. I'll see you there. Alright, 4th game is MW3. And we're playing the game at 440p at a mix of medium, low, and high settings. No DLSS, no FSR. Here we go with that. There we go. So this game can be played at 4K, even at those high settings. But realistically, for a game like this, if you are playing online anyway, you do want to turn the settings down and lower the resolution to get as many frames as you can normally. Found a game, but I got 150 ping apparently. That is not good, but we'll try our best and see what we can do. Yeah, 150 ping, that's fantastic, isn't it? But anyway, we are sitting at 170 to 160 FPS, playing on underpass. Again, no DLSS. So if you do enable it, it'll be much better. But yeah, this game plays really nicely. It's well optimized. And on the 3080, it plays beautifully. I think I'm on the Japanese servers, because everyone in this lobby has a Japanese name. Hey, I'll take it though. It's an easy lobby, it seems like. Woo. Come on, I couldn't kill those two. Die. Thank you. Alright, we'll do one more life, and then I'll back out and move on to our next game. Triple, let's go. Alright, that is the end of the match. Time for our next game. Next on the list is the Crew Motorfest. This game has a built-in FPS cap of 60, but regardless, we're playing the game at 4K at the max settings. There we go. And sadly, the overlay isn't working, so I'm using the built-in one from Nvidia, but it's not a huge deal since, again, the FPS is capped to 60. Alright, let's go. So far in the low 50s and the mid 50s. The game feels fine, can't feel any stutters, any lag spikes. It is playing very smoothly all around. The low to mid 50s feels very similar to the low 60s. It's identical pretty much, so it's not a huge deal. But regardless, if you want to get 60 at all times, then either play at a lower resolution or at a lower preset. And that will give you the 60 FPS lock that you want. So yeah, that is the Crew Motorfest, guys. The game looks fantastic, it's very sharp, and the graphics all around look amazing as well. And with the 3080, you are sitting at mostly 60 FPS. Alright, time for our next game. Next on the list is Starfield, and we're playing the game at 440p at the high settings. And here we are with that. And in New Atlantis, guys, sitting in the mid to high 70s with dips into the 60s. It's not fantastic, but it's playable, and the game looks nice. So can't hate on it too much. And to be fair, this area is very intensive. If you go to a different planet, or if you go indoors, you're sitting at above 120 FPS with ease. Now 4K is also playable, but I would probably play at a mix of medium and high and use a more aggressive DLSS preset. Now for our system RAM, we're using up 20 gigs. This is the highest that I've seen it yet with all the games that I've tested. And for our VRAM, we're sitting at 7 gigs. So it's all good in that aspect. And for our next game, we're playing Avatar Frontiers of Pandora at 440p at the max settings. Alright, here we are with that. DLSS. And again at the max settings. Cool. So with Avatar, we have RT enabled by default. It's used for reflections, shadows, as well as global illumination as well. So the game will be obviously more intensive by default. And I think for this game, I would probably skip playing at 4K. It can hit 60 FPS with the right settings, but in my playthrough, I had stutters and FPS dips. So I think ideally play with this resolution at the max settings. The game looks nice, it's very sharp, it's very smooth, and yeah, all around it's a good time. For our system RAM, it's almost at 23 gigs. This is the highest one so far. It's even higher than Starfield. And for our VRAM, we're sitting at 9.5 gigs, guys. Again, this card has 10 in total, so we are getting close to the limit of this card in that aspect. Now time for Hogwarts Legacy. We're playing the game at 4K with balanced DLSS, at the max settings, no RT. There we go. Alright, we are starting it off at Hogsmeade, sitting at 110 FPS with 2 stutters so far. 3 stutters, never mind. Let's call in the broom and fly away. Alright, I want to fly towards the Forbidden Forest. That is very intensive on the GPU. And so far, guys, again, in the low 80s and 70s. Let's recount the FPS. And let's go down into the forest. And now in the forest, guys, we are sitting in the 80s and 90s. It's fantastic. The game is very smooth and very fluid. I do get a couple stutters here and there, though. Keep that in mind. I think ideally I would use a 60 FPS cap for this one. But if you want to get more frames, you can with the right CPU. Now, for the system memory, we are using up 27 gigs. That is crazy. Higher than Avatar and Starfield. For our VRAM, we're sitting at 8.8 gigs. It's up there, but again, we're playing at Ultra at 4K, so it's to be expected. And yeah, the game is playable, looks nice, and plays nice as well. Our next game on the list is Dead Space Remake, and we're playing the game at 4K at the max settings with balanced DLSS. Here we go with that. There we go. And let's go down. Cool. So far in the 80s and 90s, that is fantastic. This game does have a stuttering issue, unfortunately. So loading into new sections will cause the game to stutter for a split second. So keep that in mind. But all around, it's very playable on this card at 4K, which is nice to see. Here we go. Got our first enemy. Just die, bro, please. Give up. The aiming feels fantastic. Very smooth. Oh, behind me. Go, please. Go, 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 go. Open up. Please. Is he following me? Huh. He's stuck. Unlucky, buddy. Unlucky. Right here is where the game stutters. Alright, here it comes. And there we go. Again, it's a minor stutter. Happens for a split second, but it does happen. Alright, near the ship, guys. It's very intensive. FPS falls down into the high 60s. Again, it's fine. We are playing a single player title. So 60 FPS is our target. And yeah, it does hold 60 FPS the entire way through. Now it's time for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And we're playing the game at 4K at the max settings with DLSS enabled. And here we are with that. There we go. So this game is really more CPU intensive than it is GPU intensive. So it all comes down to your CPU. In the main city hubs, the game becomes extremely bottlenecked, which I'll show you guys in a second. Let's go ahead and fast travel to the ship, which I think is nearby. And guys, so far for our system RAM, we're using up 25 gigs. And for our VRAM, we're using up 8.6 gigs. So again, these games are using up a lot of system memory, at least 20 gigs. While this issue is still in the game, on the map screen, we are sitting at 30 FPS. That is just crazy how it hasn't been fixed. All right, the fast traveling is done. We are in a main city hub, and we're sitting at 70 FPS up to 80 FPS. It's playable with a 3080 at above 60 FPS, but even at 4K, you can be held back by your CPU. I think this game and Forza Motorsport are very CPU intensive, so be careful of them. Alright, let's back out, guys, and play The Last of Us Part 1. Now for The Last of Us Part 1, we're playing the game at 4K at a mix of high and ultra settings with performance DLSS. Here we are with that. There we go. So this game had a pretty rough launch on PC when it came out. It was very unstable, it was very intensive, but nowadays it does run quite nicely. So even at 4K, we can get 90 to 100 FPS, and this level is very intensive all around. So once we go over this little fence and drop down, so will the FPS down into the low 80s. Again, it's fine, above 60 FPS for this kind of game. And yeah, the game looks really nice. It's very sharp, and the graphics look amazing. For our system RAM, we're using up 22 gigs, and for our VRAM, we're using up 8 gigs. So again, we're fine all there. So yeah, The Last of Us Part 1 is very much playable with a 3080, even at 4K. We got Armored Core 6 for our next game, and we're playing at 4K with the max settings. This game runs extremely well on most systems. It's not super intensive. If I'm being fair, the graphics aren't next gen either, but again, it does play nicely, so can't hate on it too much. In the game, we're sitting in the low 80s and the high 70s. That is amazing. Game is super fun. I won't even lie. And wow, at 4K, it looks kind of good actually. Not bad. The low 70s here. I think falling into the 60s is definitely a possibility at this point. Still, we have plenty of headroom to either lower the settings of the game, or I guess play at 50 FPS if it does happen. It's not really a big deal in this kind of game. It's a controller game, so playing at 50 to 60 FPS is plenty. He's almost dead, right? Not really, actually. Boom! Half health. Melee again. Boom. Boom. He's almost dead. Shoot, please. There we go. And melee him again. And he's done. There we go, guys. That is Armored Core 6. All completed. Time for our last game, which is EA WRC. For EA's WRC, we're playing at 4K again, but at the high preset. And here we go with that. There we go. Let's go. This game had a massive stuttering problem when it came out, and I think it still does, unfortunately, but mainly it's due to the shaders compiling, so it will go away over time. And for the overall performance, it's quite good, but some areas are very intensive, so the FPS can fall down as well. We are racing during the rain. Not good. It's gonna be kind of tough, I think. I'll take it slow. I mean, the car isn't quick, but I mean, come on. I'm taking it extra slow just in case. In the 60s and the 70s, guys, it's very much playable. And it is raining as well, which, ooh, the stutters are back, which can be intensive in some games. Some awful headlights, guys. What is that? I can't see nothing with the headlights on. Cool, there we have it. That is the RTX 3080 tested with games that are released in 2023. So I think all around it does a great job playing these games at 4K, at those higher presets as well. It does need DLSS for most of them, but DLSS looks as good as native at 4K, and the games are playable at above 60 FPS. So no hate there. We are seeing some games that need to be dropped down to 440p, as well as with DLSS at the same time, which is crazy. But we only get a couple of those every year. So I think this card is still mainly a 4K card. But again, in some games, either the settings have to be turned down or the resolution. So yeah, that's about it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time for the next video. See you guys there.